So welcome to part one of the WIL Global Gathering. We're up super early here in the UK to ensure that we can include speakers and participants from Asia and Australasia. The segment is split into 4 sessions: inspiration, project, action and social. We hope you enjoy the programme today and encourage you to get involved in the chat, ask questions or drop into the info booth to say hello to WIL ambassadors for Australia and Singapore, Ilza and Yon Lee. So to kick off our first inspiration session, we have Dorothy Di Stefano, who is speaking to us from Australia. If you haven't come across Dorothy before, I recommend you get connected on LinkedIn. As a top voice on LinkedIn, Dorothy shares an amazing array of immersive art projects and artists from around the world on a daily basis. Her posts and the artists she works with are colourful, stunning, thought-provoking, and always very beautiful. And this is what made us think that she'd be the perfect person for an inspiration session. I'd like to quote Dorothy from an interview she gave last year, where she said, "I firmly believe that personal and professional development is a lifelong process. We totally agree. We need to keep sharing the work of others to help us grow." So Dorothy, share away.
Thank you, Sharon. I'm thrilled to be here. I'd like to thank yourself and Martin for inviting me. It's a real honour to be part of this amazing event. So without further ado, I'll get into it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen because obviously I work in a very visual industry, and so visuals are the best way of highlighting the beautiful work that's done in this space. So I'm going to be talking today about light based immersive experiences, and there's quite a few. So so I'm hopefully I'll stick to the time frame, but if not, Martin's going to boot me off. Okay, so just a little bit of background about me, and if you haven't come across me before, this is just some basic information, but I'd like to talk about who I am as a person just briefly, so and how I fell into this space. So I'm an ex-musician. I used to be a cellist, and I've always been obsessed with beauty, the beauty around me, and in particular nature. So I'm that strange individual that stares at clouds and likes the sound of leaves underfoot, and you know, and I point these things out to my son all the time. Apart from being the founder of Molten Immersive Art, you know, you can see I was LinkedIn's top voice in 2019, and I sit on quite a few boards and committees. I guess the thing that's really come of light in the last year is this space of curation for me. So I'm starting to curate a lot of events globally, and bringing artists to the table in creating for digital museums, organisations, festivals and events. So I just wanted to show you some of my work on LinkedIn. So this was a post that was done a week ago. And I guess, you know, I started working on LinkedIn maybe 18 months ago, and I was blown away actually by the response, I guess, because it was art being promoted in a business community and something that hadn't been done to this scale before. And, you know, and I was thrilled that I was able to connect artists with some of the biggest companies in the world and to promote, you know, art in general. So I post generally 6 to 7 times a week on the space, and sometimes that doesn't happen, but generally, you know, it's really highlighted the importance of art and what you know, what is missing out in the world, and you know what the impact is. So we're talking about inspiration. So I've put together this video that shows some of my favourite immersive art installations. I thought I'd show you. I steal from the beggar's empty plate, give to the fed man. The night is closing in, we're down the bottom of the well. Burning riches light my way.
riches light my way. Burning riches light my way. Burning riches light my way. Burning riches light my way.
So obviously quite a few pretty inspirational artists and works there. So I thought I'd start today's discussion really around what is an immersive experience and what makes it great. So, you know, it's around creating that world around a person, so helping them escape their reality and helping them be part of that experience. It creates and moves beyond that fourth wall. So if anyone out there doesn't know what the fourth wall is, that space between the audience and the performer. So at the core of it, the idea is that the audience no longer exists and it's not a passive experience. So they're not just looking at it, they're actually part of it. What makes a great experience? There's lots of factors that make a great experience and not all of them are used at the same time, but generally it's around, again, escaping that reality and creating moments of childlike wonder. So I know that when we create an experience, if we're having, people walking through the space, and if adults are acting silly and engaging with it, like children, then we know that we've connected. Another thing that's becoming important, I guess, is that strong narrative. So the space used to be very much about wow, bright lights and projection. And now it's very much, okay, what's the story that you're telling? How are people engaging with that story? The other important aspect, and something that's becoming more important now, is that idea of engaging as many of the five senses as possible. But obviously, when I say that, it's around, well, if you're going to use two of them, make sure you do them really well. If you're going to use five, again, make sure that that's done really well. It's more important that it's engaging rather than engaging all of those senses. With my music background, something I find that's super important for me is that idea of a strong audio. And that's a combination of having a great soundscape, but also the equipment that's used is really important. There's nothing worse than going to an event, seeing an immersive artist create something that's truly beautiful visually, but the audio, the soundscape or the technology doesn't connect, and you feel like you're watching a movie and there's no sound effects. So there's a real disconnect with the experience. Something that's exciting in the industry at the moment is that idea of scent, so incorporating fragrances into the space. So scent affects mood, concentration, memory recall and emotion. And in fact, 75% of all emotions generated every day are due to smell. Because of this, we're 100 times more likely to remember something we smell over something we see, hear or touch. And the final element that I think is really crucial, and I guess this comes from a design perspective as well as from an arts perspective, is that idea of less is always more. So there's, you don't want to be part of an experience where there's too much visually going on the whole time, or the audio is too loud, or, it's that balance. And again, it's like watching a movie, there's a climax and then there's and then it kind of softens down and meditative moments. So I'm going to show you some examples of some of my favorite artists. And bearing in mind that now that I've talked about what makes a great immersive experience, that not all of these artists have used all of these elements. So I probably don't need to mention too much about James Turrell, except for the fact that he's amazing. He's an American artist, obviously, and he's well known for doing large-scale immersive light installations. I feel like his strength in his work is around that minimalist, strong lighting. And also that because of the saturation in colour, people feel like the edges of the room have disappeared. It's almost like you're walking on clouds or you're escaping reality. Just beautiful work. Liz West, so she's one of my favourites, absolutely incredible artist. Again, she's a UK artist that does installation work as well as working with lighting. So this particular piece is called Our Colour, and it was a multi-sensory experience developed alongside experts and designed as an experiment in human perception. So it used lighting as a sculptural medium to investigate the physical, emotional and psychological responses to colour within a specific space. Liz created this work by refracting light through carefully arranged coloured theatre gels. This formed a gradient of hues. This is probably one of those experiences that I wish I'd actually got to experience. Absolutely stunning. So Fujimoto, so this particular work was done for Arctic House in New York, and it's called Intangible Forms. He's a Japanese multimedia artist, and this particular piece was a live performance piece that was kinetic lasers. So again, what I love about this piece is the simplicity. There's not much being used, but it was also set to a meditative soundscape. So it was inspired by Shinto shrines in the mountains of Japan. So it was that beautiful combination of audio and lighting. Kari Kohler, apart from being a really nice human being, Kari is a Finnish artist. He created this piece last year. It was absolutely magical. It's called The Savage Beauty, and it was created on top of an Irish mountain range. It comprised of 1,000 large lamps spread over 4.8 kilometres. And to date, it's the largest site-specific light artwork ever created. The beauty of the work is the way that the green and blue lights reflect off the water, but also, I guess, how it illuminated by the low-lying cloud. So it's just magical work. Jeong Moon Choi. So there's quite a few artists working in this space, but Jeong Choi tends to be my favourite. So she's a South Korean artist who's now based in Berlin. She redefines space by creating installations of colour thread, which she illuminates under UV light to create illusions of perspective. Really beautiful work. A group called Tundra. So they're based in St. Petersburg, and they work with, all their installations are quite different. So they do projection work as well as, work with AV, and specific like techniques that they use to create different kind of emotions and feelings. This particular piece was called The Day We Left Field. And the idea is that it's a floating meadow, so you can see the person standing in front of it. Now, I picked this red one, which probably isn't representative of what it's supposed to be, but it's based on a series of light and sound effects inspired by the environment, particularly in an urban landscape. The beauty of this work is that, the lighting actually makes the reeds that are above the ceiling look like they're swaying, which is absolutely magical. Okay, I've got a few videos to show you now. So Nonotac, amazing. So what I'll do is I'll talk about them first and then I'll show the video. So Nonotac are Paris-based duo. So one of them is an illustrator, visual artist, and the other one is an architect, musician. And they work in that lighting space and audio, obviously, combined. This particular installation is called Giants, and it was created with monolithic light sculptures accompanied by a score of sci-fi ambience and seismic bass tones. The scale of this piece is what makes it impressive. Also the timing of the lighting and the audio combined, and the venue. All right, so I'm not sure where I was at, but anyway, Christopher Border, he's a German interactive designer and media artist. This particular piece is a live performance piece that was done in Berlin. And it's an amazing piece actually, but what it does is what he's done is connected this kinetic mirrors with perfectly synchronized lights and sophisticated multi-channel sound system. Before I play this piece, I want you to notice the venue. So again, I talk a lot about venue location, like it's really important, and this really shows the impact of that, particularly the juxtaposition between the modern, the motorized kinetics and the lasers and this warehouse look and feel. So I'm obviously cutting short each of these performances, but please do feel free to go back and check out these artists. I mean, that was quite a long performance, and there's some beautiful, quite vibrant moments as well. But that felt really, very hypnotic and just beautifully done. Okay, the next artists I want to highlight is Quiet Ensemble. So I met these guys last year when I did a masterclass with them. Now before I play this, I want to let you know that there's a bit of strobe happening in the video. So if you need to look away, please do so. This particular piece is called Unshaped, and it's really beautiful. It's very hypnotic. It uses lighting, strobes and fans to create a sense of drama, which is incredible. The continuous and varying movement of the canopy sometimes gives a feeling of being submerged in the ocean under like a stormy sky, and other times it's quite tranquil and meditative. Again, the venue selection for this piece is incredible. Incredible work. Coco Lab. So Coco Lab are Mexican-based collective. Their strong connection is around soundscape and lighting, which is incredible. This piece is called White Canvas, and it's an immersive light and sound experience. So I've cut this, again, I've cut the video so that it doesn't last for 10 minutes, but one. So please do go back and check out their work. It's really beautiful. So this particular piece used 300 lights and surround sound, which was an original soundscape. So the light beams create this illusion of movement across the room, which is really beautiful. And it works really well with the nature sounds that, the lighting's timed to. I find this very engaging piece, and again, it's that minimalist look, and it feels like it sparks imagination, and it'd be a beautiful experience to walk through. Got a couple of other examples that I'd like to show you, which I don't consider to be immersive, but a great use of, well, this one in particular is a great use of tech. So Collective Scale are a Paris-based artists collective, but they're also technicians, and they combine their work with a company called Tetra A, who are a production company. This particular piece is called Coda, and it utilises 20 robotic arms, which combine lighting design with kinetic movement and sound. So the robotic arms were custom made and equipped with 1 metre long LED tubes. I love the minimalist performance of this piece. It feels like almost like a dance. And also, I think the thing that works for this piece is the reflective floor and obviously the strong, the darkness in the room. So visually, it's very, very strong. And the final piece I'd like to show you, again, is potentially not immersive, but just a beautiful perspective piece. So I know that, as a founder of Molten Immersive Art, we did a perspective piece a while ago, and they're actually quite difficult to get right. So I'm in awe of Marco for creating this piece. It's called Light and Dark, and it took his team 2 years to realise. And once I show you the video, you'll understand why. It consists of 33 illuminated geometrical objects placed in such a way to create 2 separate words. The whole installation is 400 square metres and 3 metres high. Apart from its interesting design and scattered objects, the aim of this installation is to highlight a mirror of chaos, which from a certain point of view becomes harmony. So that's all the examples I have to show for you today. I just want to show you the where you can contact me or get in touch with me. So you can reach me on LinkedIn, obviously, as Sharon mentioned earlier, Instagram at Molten Immersive Art, Facebook, again, at Molten Immersive Art, or Dorothy Di Stefano. So that's it. Ta-da!
Thank you, Dorothy. I think that's a really brilliant way to start today and to wake us up here in the UK this early. You've made me think about all the sort of installations I've been lucky enough to see and experience in my life. So I've got some questions for you. It seems our audience is a bit shy with questions, so we'll go with mine. Out of all the projects you've had sort of chance to experience, is there one that really sort of changed things for you, or sort of, made you change your life in some way?
That's a really good question. I don't know if one changed my life as such, but I always take away various elements from something. I think, like you touched on before, that idea of learning something and taking away some beautiful knowledge from either working with an artist or seeing, a piece of work that they've done. I'm just trying to think of one that might have impacted me that strongly. I've seen quite a few, so it's hard to pinpoint one, I guess. Yeah.
I was just thinking, we were lucky enough to stay in the James Turrell project, The House of Light, in Japan. And that was something that I'd read about years ago and never ever imagined that we would go and visit. So something like that, I think for me, change things, being able to experience that. So my next question was really about, what's your feeling about virtual experiences? We've had a whole... Okay, sorry, Martin's pointing out questions in the text. We've had a whole year where we couldn't travel. So first of all, how have you managed to stay inspired during this period?
It hasn't been easy, I guess. Inspiration comes from all different places. I'd prefer to be in a room with a group of people. That's just who I am. I find it really kind of odd that I'm presenting and I can't see people's faces. But as far as being inspired, I'm lucky enough that the work that I do on LinkedIn connects me with artists. So I probably speak to, maybe 5 artists every week globally, and have these beautiful conversations with people from all over the world. And that's inspiring in itself. So, finding out what they're up to, what their plans are, and potential opportunity to collaborate on, future projects.
Okay, so the second part of the question is this idea, because we couldn't travel, we had to do everything like this remotely. What's your feeling about virtual experiences, something that's remotely accessible?
I don't know. If you'd asked me that 6 months ago, I would have said I'm not into it. But since then, my son got a Oculus headset, so I can start to see the connection of artists creating work that you can experience virtually. I still don't think it's the same as being in the room and experiencing something. It's like, when you go to the theatre or, a concert, it's very different from putting on a record. So that's my feeling about it. I think it has its place, but I think nothing compares to actually being there in person.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we've just been forced into a situation where we still want to have experiences, and this is possibly the only option. I mean, interestingly, you showed some of Christopher Bowder's projects, and at the moment he has an exhibition in Berlin where he's showing lots of pieces from his sort of career. And we asked him if he would be interested in doing a virtual experience, because we know that we can't get to see it. And he said, absolutely not. It's to be experienced in person. That's what it's about. And I totally agree with that. There are a couple of questions in the chat, so if you give me a second. Okay. Alex Banda is asking, can everyone create an immersive lighting art experience? What are the hardships if you want to create one?
I guess it's up to, depends. The hardships are around technology, I guess, and that's around the expense as well. So if we look at any of the projects that I've highlighted, the main component, the main budgetary component is the AV, and sometimes that's limiting. So if you don't have a big bucket of money sitting somewhere, or if you don't have sponsors or clients to work with, then there are issues around that. But it doesn't mean that an immersive experience has to use a lot of tech. If you look at the Coco Lab example that I showed, like, okay, sure, they used 300 lights, so and obviously they needed quite a large venue. but it was cleverly done in that, the strong, it was white lighting for starters, and the audio was the strong component. So I guess it's around, being really creative, and using tech in a really clever way.
Okay. I've got another question from Lacey Campbell. You mentioned at the beginning that narrative is such an important element of immersive work. Did any of the clips you shared have a storyline or narrative that really stood out?
It's interesting. So my feeling is that the artist had a narrative, but not necessarily that was displayed. I suppose the last work that I showed, that perspective piece, had a very strong narrative that I think we could all see. And, I guess, again, Coco Labs, that narrative of, the environment, I mean, that was quite strong and underlying. The work that we're currently working on has layers of narrative. And I guess the issues around telling a story but not over-educating. So that's the space that we're starting to work in, where it's, there's layers of storytelling, but it's not in your face, and it's not, people don't feel like they're walking through a museum, but they walk away feeling something and knowing that, that I don't know, they want to make change, or they want to be outside more, or whatever the story is that we're telling.
Okay. So moving on to some other questions. Lauren, who is one of our speakers later on today, so she's either up very late or very early, asked, can you speak about the collaboration process with the other members of a team who are supporting the experience? So obviously you talked about, tech and all these different things that come together.
Mm-hmm. So I can talk it from my experience. So my company, Molten Immersive Art, is quite small on the ground. So there's only 5 of us, and that's quite strategic. We've done that because we like to work in this collaborative space. So, our strong suit is around coming up with a solid concept and then bringing people to the table. And that allows us to incorporate international artists and basically bring the best to the table. What's great about that space is that idea of, we can share knowledge, so we're always learning. It's also, it allows us to do lots of research as well. So the research component's another thing that's really important to us. And that collaboration space is really exciting. So, as an example, the project we're working on at the moment, which I can't talk too much about, apart from the fact that we have people across the globe coming together to assist us. So we have a composer that's based in LA, and we have, who else are we working with? We have production people that are based in Sydney. We have, animators that are, all over the world. And we're bringing all those people together to create, what I consider to be magic. So it's a really exciting space. The issue is around ensuring that everyone's on the same page. So for us, it's really important that it's an easy process and that we're not working with divas or, people that are going to stop us from being as creative as we can be. Like, it needs to be a relaxed, creative environment. So that's probably the most important aspect, and around building those relationships. And sometimes that comes from, working together, and other times that comes from just, being able to read people, which you get good at after a while.
And with this particular project, if it had been before the pandemic, would you have still been working in the same way, sort of, online, or would you have had the opportunity to meet in person, do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess the pandemic has allowed me to connect with far more artists. So it's given me over a year to really connect with some of the best in the world. And so maybe the team that I would have pulled together would have been very different. And I guess travel is an important thing. So touching on that travel aspect. So the one thing that does concern us about the international travel, because most of our projects are international, is that idea of
not being there for the installation process. So that's something we haven't had to do yet, and it makes me very nervous, I must admit. And I'm sure we'll be able to find the right team to do that, but I always feel like, it's your baby, and no one will put that, that kind of effort and love into that installation process as we would.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that completely. I've got a couple of other questions that have popped up here. Sophie O'Rourke here in the UK is asking, what do you think the lasting impacts of the pandemic will be on the immersive experiential lighting realm? Do you think it will affect the future?
Yes, yes. I think in a positive way. My feeling is, obviously the industry in immersive art was growing, really fast prior to the pandemic, and I think everyone panicked during the pandemic that it was going to disappear. My feeling is that it's going to grow, and that the pandemic has given us time to think about what's really important. And I'm noticing from the conversations I'm having with potential clients or, government agencies around the kinds of experiences they want to create. And it feels like they're far more meaningful, like the conversations, have a purpose, and they want to engage with people, and they're aware of things like COVID fatigue and, all those things that are stressing people out. And so my feeling is that the experiences are going to be less, again, about that wow factor and more about, important topics like well-being, the environment, like all of those really crucial things that we should have been discussing maybe a long time ago.
That's really nice to hear that those conversations are happening. There was an installation in London, and I can't remember the artist, so I'm hoping that Jess or someone that I know is in the audience can put it in the chat, where people were able to sign up online and get a slot and then scream or sort of vent their anger, and the sound was reflected in a lighting installation in a building. So I think I didn't scream myself, but I think the lighting got brighter or changed colour according to the sort of people venting their sort of COVID anguish. So hopefully someone put that up, because that to me just made me sort of really smile, that idea that it had been translated into light.
It's fantastic.
Okay, one of the things you first said was about how you were introducing sort of art to a business forum on LinkedIn. What was the sort of initial reaction? Like, how did it gain traction?
Obviously all the things that I post on LinkedIn are curated, and initially it was all around, the work that we do requires us to do a lot of research, and I suppose that's, same for most artists out there. And so I just started curating what I considered to be the pieces that really inspired us. And obviously LinkedIn it's a knowledge-based platform. So it was around, I'm going to promote artists, and, 98% of what I post is work from around the world, and 2% is, look at the project we're working on, and isn't this great? I was kind of shocked, actually, to be quite honest. It felt like, these are the kinds of works that we're surrounded with all the time, and the artists that we communicate with, but the business community is very unaware of what's out there. I guess initially I started posting from a place of frustration, which isn't a great place to start, I guess, but it was around being approached to create works from an artist, like the exact same work that an artist had produced in somewhere like Texas, that was for a completely different demographic. And, and I guess I was frustrated in that this particular piece, which I won't mention because I don't want to upset any artist, but the amount of times that this particular piece kept being shown to me, and being asked, could you create exactly that piece, was just unbelievable. So I felt like, well, let's show people what's out there. But I guess the amazing byproduct of all of that is, from from when I started to where I am now, it is very much about not promoting venues, not promoting governments or businesses, but very much about promoting artists. And the great thing about that is every piece that I post, I'm actually connecting with that person and we're having these beautiful conversations. So I think I've lost track of what the initial question was, but it really is connecting with the business community, and that's amazing. And I guess I was one of the first people to start doing that, and that's why I had such traction. And it also, LinkedIn is a very it's a very business platform. So amongst all the accounting and inspirational quotes, to see something that was very visual, and particularly because most of the installations I post are quite large scale as well, it was, it basically stopped people from scrolling.
Yeah, it certainly does stop us from scrolling, but hopefully after this you'll have some new followers as well, some new people online. What's the time? How have we got? I'm just going to ask one last question, which is something that we asked people in the Women in Lighting interviews, and it was really hard for everyone to answer, so I imagine it'd be the same for you. If you had an unlimited budget and unlimited time, what would be your dream project?
I don't know if it'd be my dream project, but I know my team would love to create something around space. So, working in this industry, I'm surrounded by excitable geeks that love space and dinosaurs and, deep sea diving, like all of those childlike scenarios. So I think space would be the dream project, like creating something immersive where people really get the scale of how big a planet is in comparison to themselves, or I guess that's it.
Okay, well, we'll watch out for that then. We're going to finish our Q&A now, so I'm going to thank you very much, Dorothy. It's been really nice having you as part of the event and chatting to you here. We're going to move on now to project sessions. I'm looking over there because that's where Martin is. And in project sessions, you can choose from 3 different presentations now. So we'll see you later.